How we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here, and welcome to, what's this now, episode 3 of Minutes with Manthieus, my little podcast series where we get to talk in a little bit more detail than just those short 3 or 4 minute videos on some topics of conversation that have been going on recently. Firstly, I've got to give a big shout out to my patrons. You are the guys and girls, I should say, that make sure that I don't have to chase the clickbait too heavily here on YouTube. We can put together some good content, and I thank you especially for your patience, as I know many of you have joined the Patreon mainly due to my efforts and time spent in World of Warcraft. I know I'm spending a little bit more time focusing on New World at the moment, but do not worry, we will get back to World of Warcraft. Actually, this podcast is going to be very heavily dedicated to World of Warcraft content, so let's get going. So, first thing I wanted to talk about is Blizzard are hiring, surprise, surprise. And interestingly to me, one of the positions they've put out there is an associate game designer for rewards/professions, specifically for World of Warcraft. Now, this is interesting. This got a few people talking. It was noted by Addon, I think, as somebody was talking about it on Twitter. And this got a lot of the gold-making content creators talking. We've all chipped in. There's actually a Reddit thread up at the moment where people are discussing the ins and outs of it. But the basis is that Blizzard are looking to hire somebody as an associate game designer. So let's take a quick 2-minute look into what it is they're looking for, and just, to help advertise the position a little bit more so. So, associate game designer with the focus on rewards and professions for World of Warcraft. What is this position going to be then? Let's take a little bit of a look at the job description. So Blizzard Entertainment is looking for a game designer for the World of Warcraft team whose primary role will be to support the professions. A candidate for this job should be excited about creating a path for players to craft an exceptional item, planning an ecosystem that promotes economic activity between players, and integrating profession throughout the experience of a World of Warcraft expansion. COVID-related blah, and then what is it you're going to be doing? So, integrate professions as an organic part of the world, from placing resource nodes to creating flavorful names that enhance and reinforce the game's story. It seems that the placement of resource nodes is obviously well calculated then. Create intriguing recipes and crafted items that are a piece of a balanced endgame ecosystem. These last 3 words give me the feels. I would love to see the professions have more of a balanced endgame ecosystem. I've, as you probably know full well, been playing a lot of New World recently, and the trade profession system in New World is not just an integral part of the game, it is an entire avenue of progression for players. Whether you choose to conquer it before you reach max level, or whether you choose to conquer it after you get to max level, it is a core foundation. Just how in World of Warcraft we have the big 3, right? We have raiding, we have PvP, and we have Mythic Plus. The trade systems in New World is almost part of that trinity. And I would love to see World of Warcraft switch more to a profession and crafting system towards the end game. As my feelings on it generally, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute, tend to be that the professions are, or have in recent times, been very much an afterthought. So it's good to see, firstly, I'm happy to see that they are thinking about making it more substantial than what it already is. They also will want developing ideas on how to position professions to encourage positive player interaction. This is a huge one. This only reiterates the fact that professions are a bit of an afterthought currently. I'll talk a little bit more so on one. I basically have 4 pillars of opportunity for professions in World of Warcraft, and one of them is the fact that I really just don't think that they interlink properly. There are very, very few instances currently where, one profession needs the expertise of another, and it's really quite positive to me, at least, to see that they want to try and, it seems basic, it seems fundamental. This is an MMO that we're playing, that, if you're going to only have one or two professions per character, then in theory they should be specialized in what they do, and they should need the expertise of others to be able to achieve what they want. It's massively multiplayer online game. It's not totally a solo adventure. Sure, you can solo a lot, but that interaction between players, I think, is key to the professions. Communicate with team members on a regular basis as part of creating iterating designs and implementing best practices. This is now we're getting Q&A. We're just getting into the regular job description mumbo jumbo at this point. But it's very positive for me to see that they are actually trying to do something more with the professions. There has been a serious lack of love, a lack of polish to the professions for a little while now, and I'm really glad to see that they're trying to put something more together. Quick disclaimer: I will not be applying for this position, even though I would imagine a few of you would probably expect me to. I know the likes of probably Samadan and Reckles, Wanted by Gold, as many of you will know him, are probably going to put their name in the hat for something like this. But unfortunately, working for Blizzard is not something that I'm more than comfortable. Ultimately, I know I'm not good for this position either way. I'm more I can critique things relatively well once they've been created, but I don't have that natural and creative flair to come up with the ideas so much in the first place. I know I'm not the right person for this job, but if you think you are, feel free to send in your application to this. If you are deep into the World of Warcraft gold making ecosystem, I'm sure you've got, just your gameplay experience alone will put you ahead of many other candidates. But this whole job post, this got some people thinking. Let's switch back over real quickly to the main. This got some people thinking. Samadan actually put a thread together over on the subreddit where he basically sort of brings attention to this and tries to ask for players' feedback on what they think the professions are. And like I sort of said earlier on, for me at least, I think there are four pillars of opportunity for the professions in World of Warcraft. And I wanted to, for the meat and veg of this podcast, I wanted to talk about those for a few minutes, as I think that there are without doubt some room for improvement. I think many people are aware of that at this point. And I've spoke about it, periodically during the live streams and such, but I've never really put together a solid, crafted piece of content that talks about it in detail. So what are my four sort of pillars that I think are pillars of opportunity for professions in Shadowlands? Well, the first thing is I think that the professions need some gameplay element attached to them. Right now, they are far too broken away, far too separate from the rest of the gameplay. You can go to a trainer with a bunch of materials in your bags, and you can maximize your skill in that profession in 10 minutes flat. There needs to be more gameplay elements to it. The example many people bring to the table straight away is Legion. Legion was not perfect, but it was definitely getting there. It had the quest lines for each of the professions, which were really cool. I think Legion was the first time they implemented ranks. We had the 3-star system for the ranks of different things, which meant that, at a very, very entry-level basis, you could create most items. But once you'd gained some expertise in crafting that item through various methods, if I remember rightly, you either had to go and get ranks 2 and 3 of certain items from completing quests, from faction rewards, that sort of thing. Everybody could create the basic version. Let's look at a potion, for example. Everybody could basically create a simple potion, but as your rank improved with that given potion, the amount of materials needed to craft it reduced. So it sort of gave those people, you know, the ones that had spent the time and the effort to level up the ranks of their different items, a leg up, a small advantage. But not so drastic of an advantage like we see with the legendary system right now. Legendaries right now that you have to have put in, quite literally in many cases, millions of gold worth of materials, plus however ridiculous amounts of time to generate that gold in the first place, to gather the materials if you're trying to do it in a self-sufficient way. There's a huge barrier to entry to even craft an item currently, whereas previously they had that balance a little bit more, well, it was just a little bit more balanced, I think is the way I should put it. So some gameplay elements to the professions is an absolute must for me. Giving people a fun avenue of gameplay through the professions, I think will attract more people to it, and it will take away that necessity that people have to grind gold in game. A lot of people want more gold and are not willing to take their credit card out to buy it, and so in turn they feel the need to generate it through their gameplay, and at the moment there just really isn't gameplay associated with the professions in any way. You can farm materials. I don't particularly consider farming materials gameplay though. You can grind mobs for raw gold, but that's, once again, it's arguably not gameplay. I'm looking for more, you know, quest lines, story, lore-based stuff. Specific, I mean, they could use the scenario system to level up your ranks in certain stuff. They could do some really interesting, engaging stuff with it if they, had somebody to put some thought process to it. This brings me to my second point, which is that I think the acquisition of a lot of the recipes needs a bit of a rework, needs a bit of a rethink. At the moment, like we said earlier, you can take a trip to your profession trainer of choice with a bag full of materials, and you can stand there and you can just craft 10 of something, then buy the next recipe, then craft more and buy the next recipe, and within 10-15 minutes you are max skill. Virtually every single recipe for every single item in every single profession you just buy from a vendor, and that to me is incredibly dull, incredibly boring. We equally have seen, though, that there are many. Blizzard have already come up with the idea. They've already come up with the idea that, well, what if you become well-renowned with a certain faction, then you can buy the recipe. We've seen it before. You get exalted with a faction, and then all of a sudden you have the ability to buy that recipe. As of recent time, we've had the Death's Advance. Once you get honoured with Death's Advance, you get Crafter's Mark III. Once you get to, I think, if I remember right, rank 4 with the Archivist's Codex, then you can buy Crafter's Mark of the Chained Isle. I would like to see there not just be these specific one-way opportunities to get recipes. I'd like to see them expand that a little bit more so. I put it forward very simply. What if you are a mega rich goblin and you just want to buy the recipe? Sure, fine, you can buy the recipe, but it's going to cost you a lot. Let's say an arbitrary number, 10,000 gold. Alternatively, you've been playing the current, world content, you've been leveling up Death's Advance, you've been doing Corthia, you hit Honoured, then you should also be able to buy the same recipe from there. But of course, because you put the time and the effort to grind the reputation out, then maybe you get it at a discount. Thirdly, how about the option of, well, let's think of it from a lore perspective. Where did those faction vendors get these recipes in the first place? Well, maybe they were acquired from that boss at the end of a dungeon per se. You could have a small drop chance for the recipe from a boss drop. This means that regardless of what your playstyle is, you have the opportunity and the possibility of getting these recipes, and it will, even if you get the recipe, maybe you can't actually craft the item till you've completed the quest line. That gives people a reason to go out and do the gameplay element of it. There's very, very simple things that could be done to tie all this together. But choice is the key factor here. Giving people a choice of acquisition of the recipes, I think, will make a huge difference. We have, like we said earlier, the three main aspects of World of Warcraft: the PvP, the raiding, and the Mythic Plus. There is no reason why you can't integrate professions into those three activities more so. The 9 times out of 10, the reason I see people fight against this is because it's usually that there's only one way of getting something, and that's the big thing that I would like to see changed here. I would like to see 2 or 3 different ways to get a recipe. How about learning that rank 6 recipe for crafting legendaries, not by crafting a million of the previous ones, but how about, either buy it outright if you're rich enough, grab it from a vendor if you happen to have the reputation with that faction, or make it a small percentage drop off a boss. Gives many people the opportunity to get it. Different barriers to entry. I'm sure people will min-max, but that's what they do in this game. Let people min-max if they want. But choice is key. The third thing that I would like to see at least looked at with professions is interlinking them, making them sort of more synergistic with each other. Right now, each and every profession is almost unique. Unique in terms of the fact that it requires no outside help from anybody else. And I think this has mainly become this way because we only have 2 primary profession slots. You have to make the active decision to, right, I'm going to be a blacksmith and I'm going to be a jewel crafter. If you choose to be a blacksmith and a jewel crafter, then Blizzard has wanted to make it so that people can still progress without any outside help. That is a philosophy that I think in an MMO I disagree with. I disagree with it from the point of view of that why shouldn't one profession need the expertise of another? It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. We see it slightly with things like jewel crafting at the moment. Jewel crafting needs a blacksmith to make the Shadowgast ingots, for the jewel craft to make the Shadowgast ring and Shadowgast necklace. That's a nice synergy to have. It gives people the opportunity, if they wish, to min-max on that one single character and be self-sufficient. But let's spread this out a little bit more. Let's make it so that some of the professions make some core items that are then used in many others. And let's get away from this, everything being on a vendor. I fully understand why Blizzard have most or many materials on vendors now, and it's to help balance the economy. That's a topic for a different video completely. But let's get away from this everything being on a vendor. Arboreal shards being on vendors is gross. Why is there not, why is there not a profession that is making these things? Vials for alchemy. Why is somebody not making those vials? Why is there not more of a link between these professions? I think that could really be improved upon. And this brings me, I suppose, to the last thing that I think could really be overhauled with professions, and that's just the acquisition of materials. Materials are a bit of a mess right now. We've seen of recent time, let me put it this way. Gathering is something that I think just needs to disappear. Not necessarily disappear, but maybe be baked in. We have cooking and we have fishing as baseline professions for everybody. Everybody can be a cook, everybody can fish. I think we now realistically need the same with both mining and herbalism. I think having them as their own separate professions just doesn't work anymore. And it doesn't really work for 2 reasons. One, Blizzard have implemented multi-tap on everything. What this basically means is that any single given herb or node out in the world can be mined or gathered by 10 people in quick succession before it will despawn. This basically means that, you can run around in a gathering route and you just pick up everything. Having to choose just gathering professions at the cost of not being able to have crafting professions, I don't think really works anymore. It was something that, worked more so in the past, but I think the game has evolved to a point now where gathering, generally speaking, should be baseline. Look at tailoring, for example. Tailoring is a good example of this. Everybody in the game, when killing mobs, can gather cloth. Now, of course, tailors can do it in a more optimal fashion. Tailors have the perk that they just find more cloth, and that kind of makes thematic sense, right? If you're a tailor, it makes sense that you see that, or you killed that mob and you're like, oh, he's got a nice fur coat, yoink, I'll have that, and we should be all good to go. I think mining and herbalism should go the same route. To me, it makes absolutely no sense. Imagine you're an alchemist and you're walking along and you see a herb, and you know that is the herb that you need to make a potion. But because you don't have alchemy, you can't pick. You don't have herbalism, you can't pick it up. Hello? It just doesn't make sense anymore. And the problem is there's a huge imbalance then with professions like tailoring. One thing that I've said a lot during Shadowlands is that the fact that everybody can gather cloth usually means that the quantity of cloth needed by the professions is far greater than what the quantity of herbs or ore is. From a balance perspective, it's really, really difficult now. Look what they ended up doing with lightless silk, for example. Lightless silk was being farmed by the millions early on in Shadowlands, to the point that Blizzard decided that you needed all of a sudden 400 of what in theory was meant to be a rare item just to craft a single item. And now coming into patch 9.1, they're having to buff the drop rate of these materials to counteract a change that they'd already made it's bonkers. It's absolutely loopy and it's completely broken. Gathering should be baseline, in my opinion. Give everybody the ability to gather everything, or if they really want to go back to the past system, they need to get rid of multi-tap. Make it so that gathering is an expertise-based system. Make it so that if you're going to have gathering routes, there's a limit to the amount of materials. You really got to pull back a little bit on the quantity of materials. The multi-tap system was good in the past, but they've squished multi-boxing pretty heavily now. Or should I say, before people get triggered in the comments, multi-boxing sure is still a thing, but it's way less efficient than what it once was, in turn meaning that very, very few people in comparison are choosing to put the time or the effort to get together to do it. Multi-boxing will always be a thing. Blizzard just need to make their mind up with that as well, I think. But gathering generally should be baseline, I think, is what I'm trying to get to here. I'm in danger of rambling at this point about it. But yes, make gathering baseline. Give everybody the ability to pick up the materials, and then build in a system to the actual core crafting professions where they take the raw materials and turn them into something more useful. I think that would be a lot more of a generally better solution overall. But that's really the four things that I think are big possible changes for the professions, and I would like to see some effort put into those going forward. There are, of course, many other aspects to this. You have, when you look at professions as how they affect the economy as a whole, you have to balance things out. You have to make sure that the amount of gold created is somewhat balanced by the amount of gold being removed from the game. Of recent times, I've stated that, those rich goblins out there, the really mega rich goblins, they need something to spend their gold on, because at the moment they don't, and rich goblins are getting richer, and all of the gold in the game is being funneled up to the top, and none of it's coming back down, or more, in a worst case scenario, none of it is leaving the game, and is causing a bit of a lopsided economy seesaw in WoW currently, and if it stays that way for too long, it will just get out of hand. There are also, things like TSM is a big. I'm more and more so as time goes on considering add-ons like Trade Skill Master to just be too powerful. The level of you can take. I know I'm kind of to blame for this, that I offer my TSM profile and I put a lot of time and effort into min-maxing my TSM profile to make it as optimal as possible. But add-ons like Trade Skill Master now just feel too powerful. The entire cancel scan meta is solely based on the fact that it's done with an add-on. If you're not using an auction house add-on, the cancel scan meta basically doesn't exist. And is it maybe time for Blizzard to, you know, draw a line between on how powerful these add-ons can be? I love TSM to bits when it works, but is it maybe too powerful? There are many other things to consider outside of just the professions themselves, but I think generally speaking, professions need a bit of love. And if they get a little bit, it's good to see that Blizzard are working forward to try and fix that. Anyway, that's about all I've got to say in regards to the professions. I wanted to just finish this podcast with a couple more quick topics. Our adventures in New World. New World, I'm absolutely hooked on still. Weirdly, I'm still not even level 60. I've been really taking my time leveling. I'm also now getting to the painful 50 plus leveling. You may, if you've played New World, have noticed that, you know, the end or the last 10% of the leveling is really gross. By that point, you are very bored of doing the same 2 quests. Mob respawn times are a bit gross. The power scaling is a little bit out of whack. The game's not perfect, but New World, I am still having an absolute blast with it. I will still be putting forward content on it, as it's the game I'm primarily playing, and that in turn, you know, dictates the content that I put out on the channel. Patch 9.1.5 though is right round the corner. As of you watching this, there's probably less than a week until patch 9.1.5 launches. This is probably going to bring some people back to the game, but I wouldn't expect a lot of people to come zerging back to World of Warcraft for this patch. I will, of course, still be playing World of Warcraft. I will still be producing content for it. 9.1.5, though, I think has a subtle problem in terms of the main... I mean, let's think about it really. Legion time walking in the Mage Tower is the big selling point for patch 9.1.5, and that itself doesn't release until a month after the patch launches. Really weird, really weird way of doing it. The skeptic in me is telling me that that's a gross way to get 2 months sub out of people. Yeah, I don't think 9.1.5 is going to bring a huge amount of people back. I'll put together a video later this week talking about preparation for patch 9.1.5. And like I said, there's no new content per se, but there's a lot of balance changes and there's a lot of system changes that will heavily affect the way, you know, the game just feels and plays. And so I think it's worthwhile taking a look at that. From a economy perspective, a lot of material drop rates are changing, a lot of time gate limitations are being taken away. This all in turn is going to mean that the economy and the goal making side of things is going to shift quite heavily, but not for any, you know, big end game reasoning. So we'll look at that a little bit more in detail. But I think, boys and girls, I'll leave it there for today. I don't want the podcasts to run too long. I like to have the opportunity to talk in a little bit more detail than just that quick 5-10 minute video that, you know, people prefer on YouTube. But this format gives me the ability to talk in a little bit more detail, which I enjoy. Once again, a big thank you to, firstly, all of the people that have got to this point in the video. We are now a good sort of nearly half an hour into the video, so thank you if you're still watching at this point. I hope you enjoyed. A couple of things. I'll leave a link in the description down below to Samadan's Reddit thread talking about the professions. Please take 5 minutes out of your day to firstly go over there, have a little bit of a read through some of the comments that have already been left, maybe chip in where you feel appropriate. And of course, for my patrons, once again, a quick shout out to you guys. Thank you for making this podcast possible, limiting my desire and necessity to have to chase ad revenue on YouTube. So big thank you to you guys. We'll be back to focusing on World of Warcraft before too long. So, but of course, if you're enjoying the New World content, thank you once again. But I'll leave it there for today, boys and girls. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good one. And regardless of which game you're playing at the moment, have fun. I'll catch you next time. Peace.